Greedy modern stars backing Rolapp's $20 million purses while Nicklaus fights for the soul of golf. That is not a headline someone invented for drama. That is the actual split happening on this tour right now, this season, in front of you. The players who made their names on these fairways are the same ones locking in a structure that hands $4 million to a single winner for one weekend of work. And the man who won 18 majors across 26 years of competition is standing in front of cameras at his own tournament, telling them the direction is wrong. You already feel it. You have felt it for a while. Something is being traded away on this tour, and nobody asked the fans whether the deal was worth making. The question is not whether the money exists. You know it does. The question is who exactly signed off on this, which specific events carry those purses, why the biggest names in the game chose to back it, and how the greatest player to ever compete is fighting to pull it back. Those answers are coming. Every single one. They connect in a way most fans have not put together yet, and once you see the full picture, you cannot unsee it. I think the tour handed its identity over for a paycheck, and I want to know if you agree or if I am wrong. Drop it in the comments. If you want honest golf talk with zero spin, subscribe right now. What most fans have missed is this. The players backing those purses did not just agree to them. They built the system. What Nicklaus said at his own event about it makes the whole thing personal. They built it around $20 million purses, not one event, a whole structure. The first place you can see it clearly is the Truist Championship. $20 million in the purse, $4 million to the winner, 4 rounds of golf, one Sunday, and a player walks off the 18th green, $4 million richer. That is not a major. That is not a playoff finale. That is a regular stop on the schedule now. 10 years ago, a standard PGA Tour event carried a purse between $6 and $8 million. The winner took home roughly $1.5 million. That was the deal. You played 4 rounds, you won the tournament, you collected your check, and you moved to the next stop. Now, one signature event pays the winner more than 2 full standard events used to pay combined. The math is not subtle. The gap is not accidental. It was designed this way on purpose by the people who benefit most from it. Think about what $20 million does to the rest of the ecosystem. The caddy on the bag of the winner collects 10%. That is $400,000 for walking 4 days. The local economy around the host course sees a spike that smaller events cannot generate. The broadcast window gets priority placement because the purse justifies the coverage. Everything orbits the money now. The golf is the justification, the number is the point. Rolapp set $20 million as the floor, not the ceiling. Other events carry that same number this season, and the structure does not stop there. In 2028, the tour expands this model into something even bigger, more events, more concentrated money, a separate tier built specifically for the top players, funded from the top down, designed so the biggest names never have to compete for smaller purses again. Below that top tier, the rest of the tour plays a different game. Same logo, same broadcast, different reality. Players fighting for spots, for points, for next year's card, while the elite tier plays for $4 million a weekend. The distance between those two worlds is growing every season, and nobody on the player side is pushing to close it. One event pays $4 million to a single winner. That event is not alone, and the 2028 expansion makes every current number look small. The players who approved this knew exactly what they were building. They did not split the money evenly. The person who pushed back hardest was not sitting in that room. The first name you need to hear is Rory McIlroy, not because he is the loudest voice, not because he demanded the most money, because he is a player director. He sits in the room where these decisions get made. He voted on the structure. He approved the signature event model that puts $20 million on the line for a limited field of top players. Being a player director means you represent the membership. You are supposed to look out for every player on this tour, not just the top 20. You vote on scheduling, on purse allocation, on eligibility rules, on the direction of the entire organization. There is a conflict built into that role when the person voting on the purse structure is the same person collecting the largest share of it. McIlroy knows that. Every player director knows that. They voted yes anyway. McIlroy has spoken publicly about protecting the tour's future, about making sure the best players stay, about building something sustainable. Those are his words. Those are the words of a man who helped design a system where he can earn $4 million in a single weekend while players ranked outside the top 50 fight for entry into the same events. He did not do this alone. He was not the only player director in that room. McIlroy approved the structure and defended it publicly. 3 other player directors sat beside him when the vote happened, and their names mattered just as much. Second name, Xander Schauffele. Quiet, consistent, rarely makes headlines for anything other than his golf. He was in that room. He voted yes. He backed the model that concentrates $20 million purses at the top of the schedule. Schauffele is not the type to chase controversy. He does not give fiery interviews. He does not post statements on social media. He showed up, he voted, and he went back to playing. That silence is its own kind of statement. Third name, Patrick Cantlay. Same room, same vote, same approval. Cantlay has been one of the most vocal defenders of the tour's new direction in press conferences, arguing that the structure protects players' long-term earning potential. 3 names so far, 3 votes. 3 players who looked at a system that pays them $4 million a weekend and said yes. The full list of who signed off on this is longer than most fans realize. 3 player directors approved the model. 3 more top players backed it publicly. The reason they all said yes comes down to one threat. That threat has a name, LIV Golf, the PIF-backed tour that offered guaranteed hundreds of millions to pull the best players off this tour. When LIV launched, the PGA Tour faced a choice: match the money or lose the players. Rolapp chose to match it. Not across the board, not for every player, for the top. The signature events, the 20 million purses, the limited fields, all of it was designed as a counteroffer. Stay here, play these events, earn $4 million a Sunday, keep your equity in the tour. Leave and you get the PIF money, but you lose the legacy. The players who left for LIV, Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Cameron Smith, they walked away from this tour and took their star power with them. Each departure made the remaining players nervous. Each departure made the tour scramble harder to keep the next name from walking. That fear is what built the $20 million structure. Not ambition, not growth, fear. The players backed this because LIV made them an offer they could not ignore, and the tour responded by making them an offer they could not refuse. The greed label comes from what happened next. Once the top players secured their 20 million events, nobody in that room fought to raise the purses for the players ranked 60 through 150. The Challenger Series stayed where it was. The wall went up. Think about what that means for the player ranked 120. He has his PGA Tour card. He earned it through Q School or the Korn Ferry Tour. He is supposed to be playing the biggest stage in golf. Instead, he is fighting for a spot in events that carry a fraction of what the signature events pay. Knowing that the top players have their own separate schedule now, the ladder he climbed just got pulled up behind him. LIV forced the tour's hand. The players who benefited most from the response are the same ones calling it necessary. The man watching from the outside saw the math differently. Jack Nicklaus made $5.7 million in his entire PGA Tour career. 26 years, 18 major championships, 60 tour wins, $5.7 million. Total, a modern player wins 1 signature event and collects $4 million. 1 weekend, 1 trophy, 1 Monday morning deposit. Nicklaus played 26 years of major championship golf and walked away with less than what 2 modern Sundays pay. Let that number sit for a moment. $5.7 million across a career that defined the sport. $4 million for a single victory in an event that did not exist 3 years ago. That is not inflation. That is not market growth. That is a fundamental change in what the tour values. In Nicklaus's era, the purse at a standard tour stop was somewhere between $200,000 and $500,000. The winner took home maybe $50,000 to $75,000. You played because you loved the competition. You played because earning your card meant something. You played every event you could because every check mattered and every start kept your status alive. Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Tom Watson, they all played the same schedule, the same events, the same purses. Nobody had a private tier. Nobody had guaranteed starts. You earned your spot on Thursday and you kept it through Sunday. The modern model says the top players do not need to do that anymore. They have their own tier, their own purses, their own schedule. They do not need to show up to the events that built this tour because their money is guaranteed elsewhere. $5.7 million for a career, $4 million for a Sunday. Nicklaus watched that math get written and decided he could not stay quiet. He said it at the 2026 Memorial Tournament. His tournament, the event he built, the one he hosts every year at Muirfield Village. During his press conference, Nicklaus looked into the cameras and told the tour that the schedule is too clustered. Too many big events stacked on top of each other. Traditional tournaments cannot breathe, cannot stand out, cannot compete for attention when purse size is the only metric that matters anymore. He said he is not exactly in favor of the proposed overhaul. That is Nicklaus language. That is the most polite way a man can say the tour is destroying itself. He pointed out that when every elite event carries $20 million, the history of a tournament becomes irrelevant. Colonial, the Heritage, the Byron Nelson, these events built the tour. They carried it through decades. Now they are squeezed between $20 million weeks and majors fighting for relevance in a calendar that does not need them. Nicklaus did not yell. He did not rage. He stated the problem plainly, the way he has always stated things, and that made it land harder than any outburst could. Speaking at his own event gave those words weight. The memorial is his legacy. Muirfield Village is his life's work outside the ropes. For him to stand there in the place he built and publicly question the direction of the tour that made him famous, that is not a casual comment. That is a man planting his flag and daring someone to move it. Nicklaus named the problem at his own event. The tour's response was silence, no rebuttal, no defense. That silence said everything. For the traditional events watching that press conference from the other side of the calendar, the silence was a signal. Sponsors pay for visibility. If the tour is not going to publicly defend the value of a Colonial or a Heritage, those sponsors start looking at the numbers differently. Fields thin out, broadcast windows shrink. The event that hosted the tour for 50 years suddenly has to justify its existence to a boardroom that only sees the $20 million events getting attention. That is how a tournament dies. Not with a cancellation notice, with a slow fade into irrelevance. Here is the full picture. The players backing this are McIlroy, Schauffele, Cantlay, and the broader group of top 20 players who approved the signature event model and the 2028 Championship Series. They backed it because LIV Golf threatened their earnings ceiling, and Rolapp offered them a counter structure that protects their income. The events carrying the money are the 2026 signature events, the Truist Championship, AT&T Pebble Beach, the Arnold Palmer Invitational, each with $20 million purses and $4 million to the winner. The 2028 Championship Series expands this to 24 elite events, minimum $20 million each, top players only. The PGA Championship sits at $20.5 million, the Masters at $22.5. Below all of it, the Challenger Series players fight for entry, for points, for survival. Nicklaus is fighting this by speaking publicly, by naming the schedule problem, by defending traditional events, by refusing to let the tour erase its own history in pursuit of a bigger number. He is 86 years old. He cannot stop the machine. He can only stand in front of it and say what it is costing. Every name, every event, every number, every reason. The full answer is there. What happens next is the only question left. The 2028 Championship Series is approved. It is locked. Rolapp's vision is not a proposal anymore. It is a timeline. 24 events, 20 million minimum, top players only. The traditional stops that do not fit that model will either adapt or disappear. Colonial, the Heritage, the Byron Nelson, events that carried this tour for decades now face a future where their history is not enough to guarantee a spot on the calendar. Nicklaus knows this. That is why he spoke. That is why he keeps speaking. He is not fighting for his own purse. He made his money 30 years ago. He is fighting for the idea that golf is supposed to be a meritocracy, that any player who earns their card can compete on the same stage as the #1 player in the world, that a tournament's value is not measured only by its purse, that the fans who show up to a non-signature event, who park in the same lots, who follow the same fairways, deserve a tour that still plays for them. The modern stars see it differently. They see a market, they see leverage, they see a window to secure their financial future before the next disruption hits. Both sides understand the stakes. Only one side is willing to say it out loud. Does a $20 million purse make a tournament better? Or does it make everything else feel smaller? The tour has already answered that question with its schedule. Nicklaus answered it with his press conference. The fans have not answered it yet. You are the ones who show up. You are the ones who watch. You are the ones who decide whether this game keeps its soul or trades it for a number. Watch what happens between now and 2028. Watch which traditional events get squeezed off the calendar. Watch which players speak up and which ones stay quiet. The next 2 seasons will tell you everything about whether this tour still belongs to the game, or whether it belongs to the number at the top of the purse board. If this changed how you see the tour this season, share it with someone who follows golf but has not connected these dots. Subscribe for the next one. No sugarcoating.